Hello, church. This is Keith Fair, pastor for Faith Formation and Discipleship at St. Matthew Lutheran Church in York, Pennsylvania. We are part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and I welcome you to our Bible study for today, Wednesday, August 5th. This is a look at the gospel passage for this coming Sunday, which is Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. 22 through 33. This is for the upcoming 10th Sunday after Pentecost, August 9th of 2020. Welcome to our Bible study this morning. I'll begin by reading our passage, and I'm reading today from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Once again, as we're taking a look at this passage from Matthew, we see that Matthew is the consummate rabbi. He has tons of quotes and references to the Old Testament sprinkled throughout his gospel writing, including even the structure of the narrative itself. Matthew is written in 5 long discourses, passages of parables and teaching, sometimes a chapter long, sometimes even 2 or 3 chapters long. And each of them is concluded with some variation on the phrase, "After Jesus finished saying these things," and something else occurs. Each of these discourses is followed by a portion of narrative, of plot, stories where Jesus goes, what he does when he gets there. And people that study these things have said that perhaps these 5 sections of discourse and narrative mirror the 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch, the Torah, the first books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So we are in today chapter 14 of Matthew, and this is the narrative portion that follows the third discourse. That was back in chapter 13. Chapter 13 is a collection of parables, many of which we've heard in the last few weeks in worship. They are now in this accompanying passage of narrative that follows. And chapter 14 is very fast-paced. And this pace is starting to take a toll on the very human Jesus. It begins with his rejection at his hometown of Nazareth, followed up by the beheading of John the Baptist, who is Jesus' own cousin and close friend and a co-worker in the reign of God with him. Following John's execution, Jesus attempts to retreat, to go off by himself, but he can't. The crowds follow him. And so Jesus ends up spending the day curing their sick, and at the end of that long day, when the people are hungry, Jesus feeds them. 5,000 men, we're told, plus women and children. And then, finally, after all that, Jesus gets the chance to go off alone and pray. And that's where we pick up at the beginning of today's story. Jesus puts his disciples into a boat, says he's going to meet up with them on the other side. He sends the crowds away, and he goes up a mountain to be alone. In the first 2 verses of this story are a testimony to the power of self-care. Following that span of prayer and rejuvenation, Jesus is able to walk on water. He's no longer even recognizable to his disciples. They think they're seeing a ghost, maybe because they haven't seen him so rested in some time. After he reaches the shore following this story, he no longer needs to do all the heavy lifting himself to heal others. They come forward of their own strength and touch the fringes of his cloak and are healed. So there's a question, I think, in this passage of what Jesus means when he asks Peter, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" What is Jesus asking that Peter doubted? Did he doubt Jesus' identity when he said, "Lord, if it is you, call me out of the boat"? Did he doubt Jesus or doubt himself when he saw the strength of the storm and he began to slip beneath the water? Did he doubt the power of community and shared experience when he stepped out of the boat, leaving the others behind? After all, that's where Jesus takes him after saving him. It's after getting into the boat with the others that the storm ceases. The sea becomes calm again. It's after that that the disciples worship Jesus, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Altogether, then, this passage encourages us to be mindful of our own self-care as well as our faith, and to acts of service carried out in community with others. So that's where I think this Sunday's sermon will be headed. Until then, take care, be safe, and God bless.